Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Extra Point here on KLAA. As always, I'm your host, R2. Welcome my fellow colleagues, Jeremy from Indiana and Justice from New York. And we're going to jump right into our quick snap recap brought to you by R2 Sports Management. Panthers versus Falcons, 19-13. Look, the Panthers were able to take that away. At the end of the day, the Falcons continue their struggles on holding on to wins.
Well, what's most impressive about the Panthers is their defense played really well. Stephon Gilmore's first game as a Panther got his first interception already. That defense looks primed to do big things going forward.
Yeah, I thought Sam Darnold looked great. He bounced back a little bit, looked poised. I thought that offense moved pretty well, but it was a dogfight, and the Panthers came out on top.
Then we have the Saints versus the Bucs. Look, the Saints were able to pull that one out, 36-27, but it did come at a significant price. Look, their quarterback is out. We're going to get into that a whole lot later, but what's your thoughts on that one?
Well, the Saints defense really knows how to figure out Tom Brady. I mean, in career games against Tampa Bay, with Tampa Bay against New Orleans, he's averaging 2 interceptions a game. Everyone else, 0.6 interceptions a game. Clearly, the Saints have a recipe when they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I thought the Saints, they held down the receiving corps of the Tampa Bay Bucs pretty well for the most part. I thought it was a great defensive effort. Their backup quarterback, Simeon, stepped in a big spot and looked pretty well. He looked poised, and they got a big win.
Eagles versus the Lions, 44-6. Look, I don't know what more to say about the Lions. Boy, they need help. I don't know what they need to do. They went out and got a big trade, but man, they cannot continue to keep getting beat down by other teams in the NFL. Right now, they're sitting at 0-8. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a flat-out bad football team. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I mean, this is the worst team in the league. They have no talent across the board. It's just a bad football team right now. They're in a rebuilding process, and the Eagles took advantage of it and just routed the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that offensive line for Detroit, my God, does that unit need some help or what? They gave up 4 sacks in the first half. I think they gave up 6 in the game. But, I mean, they were just going at it all day long. They have a great defensive line with Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, Barnett. Even Milton Williams got in on the show. Eagles rolled big time.
They did there. Then we have the Packers versus the Cardinals. Hey, look, the Packers pulled that one off, 24-21. Same thing there. Look, that Cardinals offense struggled to get going, but they finally got it going. Had a major brain fart right there at the end of the quarter, in the fourth quarter for the game-winning touchdown. Look, A.J. Green literally need to be on the same page there. I think there was just a serious miscommunication when they broke the huddle on that one.
Yeah, this was a battle of 2 elite quarterbacks. I mean, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers. It was a great game to watch. Kyler Murray with that interception at the end of the game. I think, him being hurt had a lot to do with that. I think if he wasn't hurt, he scrambles and he scores a touchdown on that play. So it was a miscommunication, and we'll see if Kyler Murray can bounce back and get back in there as soon as possible.
Well, and I also think this game showed some weaknesses from the Cardinals. They had a tough time stopping the ground game of the Packers. Aaron Jones was running hard. A.J. Dillon was running through some big-time holes, pushing people backwards. I think that was the big difference in this game. The ground game kept the vaunted Cardinals offense off the field for the majority of the game. I'm pretty sure the Packers won time of possession, and then they just made more plays when they needed it.
Then we have the Cowboys versus the Vikings. Cowboys pull that win off, 20-16. Look, Cooper Rush got his first NFL win. Not a bad win to get. Was it impressive enough?
I think it was impressive enough considering they weren't playing with Dak Prescott. The defensive unit is what really is nice to see. Dan Quinn has got this unit playing extremely well. The last 2 games Dalvin Cook had against the Cowboys, he ran all over them. They held Dalvin Cook to, I think, 84 yards rushing for the entire game. This defense is a big reason why the Cowboys have such a great shot at going deep in the playoffs this year.
This was a great performance by Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you're talking about a backup quarterback coming into on the road in Minnesota. He's coming into that game. He performed pretty well. He led the team to a victory, and the defense held Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen in check pretty much the whole game. I think Justin Jefferson had like 2 catches. So this is a great team win all around.
And I got to give one shout-out to Amari Cooper. That's why that man is paid the big bucks. 2 awesome catches late in the fourth quarter to give that team the win.
Hey,
Those were 2 fantastic catches.
He definitely did not do bad on the fantasy boards, that's for sure. Then we have the Chiefs versus the Giants. Look, the Chiefs pulled that one off, and I'm going to use that term very loosely. They pulled it off, 20-17, but I was not impressed. There is something that is just not ticking with the Chiefs. I don't know if it's Andy Reid just forcing play calling to kind of relive the yesteryears of what their team was able to do, but this team is not the same, and they're forcing it right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Roland. This Chiefs team is not the same. They look lost. We're seeing Travis Kelce drop passes. He catches in his sleep. I mean, we're seeing things we've never seen this team do before. I think his defense has a lot to do with it. I think they're feeling the pressure from the media. And, yeah, you're right. They barely squeaked by the Giants last week.
Yeah, the Giants' defense had a great game plan going into this game, only limited, the Chiefs to 20 points. They eliminated the deep ball. Yeah, they gave up a lot of underneath stuff, but this was a close game till the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our quick snap recap here on the Extra Point. Ladies and gentlemen, injuries are plaguing the league right now, and there are some teams that have to really reflect on how they plan on moving forward. The Titans, King Henry, foot injury, he is out. How do they move forward? They just made a signing. They just signed Adrian Peterson. Is Adrian Peterson the answer? Probably not. But what do you think he can do to fulfill that void while King Henry is out?
Well, I think it's first important to part out that this is such a massive loss for that Titans offense. Derrick Henry was that offense. That was the offensive identity. Let him pound away, and hopefully he breaks a big one off. Adrian Peterson, he's supposedly nice and well-rested. He's ready to contribute, but he doesn't bring that factor that Henry does. Maybe if they were signing Adrian Peterson of 7 years ago, this would be like, ooh, Adrian Peterson's about to go off. But I expect him to come in, handle a majority of the carries, but I'm going to expect him to split time with Jeremy McNichols. McNichols is used a lot more in the passing game, so I expect a pretty even timeshare going forward. What you're really going to see happen is opposing defenses are going to really start cramming that box and forcing the Titans to pass that ball over the top. They've got A.J. Brown, but Julio Jones just can't seem to stay healthy. I think they're going to have a tough time moving forward with this momentous loss.
Yeah, this is an absolutely frustrating, turn of events for the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry, who was on pace for a record year. He was just going off. He was doing everything for that Titans offense. And I think this is really a season killer for the Tennessee Titans. Look, Adrian Peterson, he's a vet. He's one of the greatest running backs of all time, but he's pushing, 38 years old? He's not the same guy he is. There's no Pro Bowl offensive lineman on this Tennessee Titans offense. Derrick Henry was this running game. He was the one throwing DBs on the sideline and stiff-arming all these guys. So it's definitely going to be tough for the Tennessee Titans to bounce back. I think Ryan Tannehill has had a pretty great year so far with, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, but they've struggled to see the field, and, this could really, pretty much end the Titans season right here.
Well, you know what I fear? Much like Sherman trying to make a comeback, he quickly got injured. I hope this does not happen to Adrian Peterson. This guy's had an illustrious career. This is not the way to kind of come back in and go back out. Hopefully he is healthy. He's been stretched well, and he's been keeping his body healthy. So I'm really hoping that at a bare minimum, to your point, Jeremy, he can go in there, split some time, give some of the other front running backs for the Titans more time on the field, and he's basically just giving them break. So then we have the Saints. Their quarterback, Jameson, goes out. He's out for the season with an ACL tear. And if anyone saw that game, it was pretty clear. That was a pretty wicked twisting of the knee there. So I think most folks knew right then and there he probably was going to be out for the rest of the season. With that being said, look, Hill has been there. He knows the system. He knows the coach. He knows what to do on the field. But we actually just saw Simeon come in and do some great things. How do you think the Saints should move forward? Should they put the ball in Hill's hand and try to have him carry the team the rest of the season, or should they continue to do a little bit of that split quarterback time?
Yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head here, Roland, because coming into the season, we were talking about a potential QB battle with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. And when Jameis Winston goes down, we're talking about Trevor Simeon coming in and playing quarterback.
I know, go figure, right? Go figure.
Exactly. Where's this Taysom Hill hype we heard about coming into the season? Where is this franchise guy some people were talking about? I don't see it. I mean, it's clear that the Saints don't view him as that because they trusted Trevor Simeon in that situation. So it's kind of baffling to me that Taysom Hill wasn't called upon in this circumstance. I think, that's very telling. I think we see Trevor Simeon the rest of the way unless they sign someone else. Enter Cam Newton, maybe. I know, Roland, that's been your guy.
Well, the Saints have officially come online to say that they will not pursue Cam Newton.
While we're talking about this, it's a true shame for Jameis Winston here because here's a guy who won this quarterback battle in the offseason, who had a chance to prove that he can still be a franchise quarterback in this league.
True.
And not only does he get injured, he goes out injured against his old Tampa Bay team. Like, that's just got to be, like, the worst feeling ever, Like,
a little salt in the wound there.
He wants to do well, and then it's like, nope, I'm done for the year. So that sucks for Jameis Winston. Prayers out to him. Hopefully he can get together. But I think we're going to see a split between Taysom Hill and Trevor Simeon, just like we saw Drew Brees split time with Taysom Hill just last year. They found a way to make that effective, and Hill's kind of been dealing with a little bit of a nagging injury this year. So I think that's why you didn't see him too much in this past game versus Tampa Bay. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a timeshare. I think Simeon will be the guy going forward, and Hill will kind of play that wildcat role, that change of pace quarterback. You don't ever hear that phrase often, but I feel like that's kind of the route we're going to see the Saints go.
Yeah, look, the Saints have done very well under Winston, but at the same time, what I will say is a lot of their offense is through that running game. That running game is fierce. Alvin is just doing a phenomenal job right now. So if the defense continues to play lights out the way they've been playing, if the running game can stay intact, and I'm going to use your word, Jeremy, if Hill and Simeon can just be stewards of the offense, if they can just manage to keep the ball protected, get the first downs, I think this is still could be a combination where they can go ahead and actually continue to make a run for the playoffs. Then we got the Cardinals here. Look, that last game, they could have beat the Packers. If there was a little bit more communication coming out of that huddle between A.J. Green and Kyler, just maybe they could have figured out a way to kind of run off that corner and get a quick hitch route, and boom, the ball is there. Now, it looks like Kyler is dealing with an injury from that exact play. You will and you hope that they will immediately bounce back from this. But if he is out 1 to 3 weeks, what do you think this does for the Arizona Cardinals? Because they're on a roll, and this is definitely the type of injury that you don't want the Cardinals to now start taking a back step to and start losing games and put themselves out of maybe a first-place contention there in the NFC.
Well, Colt McCoy is the backup in Arizona, so he's been around the league. He's an experienced backup. I think the offense, they can still do a lot of the same things that, they were going to do with Kyler Murray. Obviously, you're going to tell McCoy not to run around as much as Kyler.
That's for sure.
A little bit different quarterback styles there. But, he's a cerebral guy. He's been in the league a while. He's come in a few times and looked good in spots. So if he's got to manage the offense for like a week or two, luckily, he's got an offense that only has some of the best weapons in all of football. So, a lot of quarterbacks would love to go to a situation where they have DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, A.J. Green, Christian Kirk. The list goes on and on and on. So hopefully Kyler can kind of tough it out. Obviously if he can play, you play him. But, if Colt McCoy's got to be the answer for a week or so, I think the Cardinals will be okay.
Yeah, I tend to disagree with you, Jeremy. I think this is panic time in Arizona right now. I think
Wow, panic time. Panic time.
One game, panic
But,
time.
look, the good news is it's only 1 to 3 weeks. Their season's not over, but we're talking about Kyler Murray. This offense was designed around him. He's been making these plays off of 1 foot, running around, doing all this stuff that have been winning them games so far. So I think Kyler Murray is why they are 7-1 right now, 6-1.
7-1.
Kyler Murray is why where they're at right now. So I think Colt McCoy, like you said, Jeremy, he's a veteran. He's been there, done that with Washington. He showed that he's competent. But I think this scheme is built around Kyler Murray and what he can do off platform and off script. And I think they could have some success, but I think they could tend to struggle if Kyler Murray's out.
Hey, here's the one thing I do hope that they go back to the film room and truly review and come up with a scheme for it. If they're ever in a 2-minute drill, you need to have a pocket full of plays that you can go to. And if you have to check out of a play, everybody needs to be on the same page. And, man, you want to talk about a heartbreaker. I mean, it was pretty clear that whatever play was called in the huddle, A.J. Green thought that's what they were going to go to. And when he did not realize that Murray was getting out of trouble, he was scrambling, that is that's wide receiver 101. My quarterback is in trouble. I'm going to turn around, flash, or I'm going to come back to my quarterback. And he did none of that. Matter of fact, he was looking at the Jumbotron. There's no way to explain that with the exception of he was utterly convinced that that play was going to the left side of the field, was not coming to him at all. But when his quarterback got in trouble, he wasn't paying attention. So hopefully they can figure out some things there. Now, look, we talked about injuries, and there's a lot going on with injuries. Boy, but the trade block is hot right now, and there's a lot going on there. And there's no way we can continue to proceed without talking about the blockbuster trade of Von Miller departing the Denver Broncos and heading out west, further west, and heading to that new beautiful stadium out there, SoFi Stadium, with the Rams. Look, the Rams are already on a great pace to do some great things, maybe make a deep run into the playoffs. But now you have just put another beast on the defensive side of the ball. Some argue it might not be enough. I would beg to differ that you got Donald in the middle, you got another, you got two DNs coming off the edge there. Like, I don't know if I'm a quarterback, what do I do now? As an offensive coordinator, how do I combat two Pro Bowl DNs with basically a Hall of Famer coming right up the middle? How do you combat this?
Well, first off, from the Rams' perspective, I think this is becoming the norm for the Los Angeles Rams. Selling out draft picks, to win now. It's kind of like...
Oh, whoa. So you just said selling out draft picks. So I guess what I'm hearing here, Justice, is the Rams want to win the Super Bowl now. That's why they're making these moves. It sounds like you're making an argument that maybe this Von Miller trade wasn't worth it? Or is it?
I'm kind of on the fence about it, but it's just funny to me. It's kind of like watching a gambler going back to Las Vegas and sitting down at the table after he just lost his mortgage payment the week before. I mean, this is the Los Angeles Rams in a nutshell. I mean, it's clear they don't value picks as much as other teams. A second and a third round pick for Von Miller, who's aging. He's kind of shown that J.J. Watt ability to not be able to stay healthy 100% of the time. So it's a risky move to say the least. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams, they have 3 picks in the next draft coming up. So, and I think it's a 5th and like 2 7ths or something like that. So I think they kind of cashed out on the draft this year, and they're going all out with Matthew Stafford. So, I mean, it's do or die for them, and they have to win it. There's no excuses.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with Justice here. I think the Rams are allergic to having draft picks. Anytime they get one, they're like, "Ooh, God, got to get rid of this thing. Got to get rid of this thing." I think the draft philosophy is if we don't have draft picks, we can't screw them up. No, I'm just joking. But in all seriousness, though, I agree with you completely, Justice. Von Miller is not near the player he used to be. He is not nearly as explosive as he used to be. Yes, he's going to go to a defense that has Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald. So, yes, he does bring a pass-rushing presence. But the whole J.J. Watt comparison, I think, is dead on. All of a sudden, he goes down, he could be done for the year. And that has been a common occurrence for him the last few years. He's not made it a full season. So, just kind of left me scratching my head thinking, man, I'm giving up a round 2 and a round 3 pick for a guy who's clearly over the hill in an exchange, I'm going to have a situational pass rusher. I don't think he's going out there to start right away. I mean, he's going to be splitting reps, and maybe that's the way you help manage Von Miller so he isn't overworked, so he is fresh more often. But just when this trade came through, I wasn't surprised at all. Just because, like you said, this is the Rams' MO, and I can't totally fault them for it because they are making it to the playoffs. They are going all in. They are trying to win this year.
No, I definitely hear you guys, and I think there's some valid points on both ends of the spectrum there. But to your biggest point, right now, I think offensively they feel comfortable that they have a juggernaut offense. So why not go out, make a solid trade? But also, I want people to think about this. It's not just the fact of the trade itself, right? It's the fact that the Denver Broncos are going to eat up $9 million. So they were comfortable. They're comfortable with this. So once again, I think the Broncos know that, hey, they're in rebuilding phase. When you look at the Rams, to your very point, I think they feel they have the recipe right now to put all the chips in and go after the Lombardi Trophy. All right, so now we have the Houston Texans and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins just pulled back from the table from the Deshaun Watson trade. The owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, specifically and explicitly stated there needed to be certain contingencies in place before he pulled the trigger on this trade. And those contingencies weren't in place. Plus, on top of it, you're hearing through the legal channels that Deshaun Watson and his legal team are looking to settle out on this particular legal battle that he's facing. So the numbers go up. The value on Deshaun Watson goes up now. Is there a team out there that are going to try to go back after this guy?
Well, I think Miami could easily revisit this deal in the offseason. Like you said, they were waiting for those contingencies. I think the biggest contingency is just them, Deshaun Watson and his lawyers, getting this legal stuff out of the way. If the legal stuff is out of the way, you're looking at a top 5 quarterback in this league, guy who can possibly take you over the top. Miami has struggled a lot this year. It hasn't all been at Tua Tagovailoa's feet. But, if you bring in a guy like Deshaun Watson, that could be the step that makes them, take maybe a top spot and chase it, when they're chasing after the Bills. And even the Patriots, who have looked good this year. I think they're a team that could definitely look into it. I wouldn't rule Carolina out of this thing either. They might have said no to this year, but I think the offseason, the battle for him could really start to heat up.
I think, the Panthers. I think the Panthers are definitely in there. I think the Eagles and the Dolphins are the two head horses in this race. I think the Dolphins have definitely expressed interest in Deshaun Watson. He's a young star, but I would keep an eye on this Philadelphia Eagles team. They have 3 picks in the top 10 right now of next year's draft. They have the ammo. Jalen Hurts, he showed flashes here and there, but personally, I don't think he's the answer. I think Philly has shown interest for about a few months now. They're definitely interested, and they're definitely a team to watch. They have the ammo, and their quarterback situation isn't perfect right now. So the Dolphins are the lead candidate right now, but keep an eye on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, that's for sure. Coming out of Miami right there. Then you have the Chiefs, the struggling Kansas City Chiefs, the defense that continues to give up points even against struggling offenses. You're talking about averaging 23 points giving up per game. With that being said, They went out, struck a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and went ahead and got Ingram. Went ahead and got Melvin Ingram from the Steelers. Is it enough to help with that defense right now?
Not at all. Look, this is this is Melvin Ingram. I think he went for a 6th-round pick. I mean, it's a pretty good deal. You can't have enough edge rushers, I guess. But the problem really isn't the pass rush here. It's the secondary. They're getting burnt week in and week out. They're getting abused week in and week out. You got Tyrann Mathieu arguing with fans on Twitter and calling out fans and all this and that. Meanwhile, he's getting beat on Sundays. So look, I mean, it's great to have another pass rusher for this defense. It could take some pressure off for the cornerbacks in that struggling secondary, but this defense as a whole is broken right now. They have questions at linebacker, safety, corner, you name it. So it's going to be a rebuilding phase. The Kansas City Chiefs will make the playoffs, but in the offseason, they really need to revamp the secondary.
Yeah, Ingram was not a piece that's going to go out and solve this defense by any means. I mean, Pittsburgh signed him this year with the idea that they were going to use him as a rotational edge rusher. And when you look at Ingram playing this year, he was more of a glorified run stopper. Week 1, he had one really good game rushing the passer. Not so much since. So, I think the Chiefs honestly are getting a guy, at the end of his career here for a 6th-round pick who can help shore up some depth. But, I mean, he was not happy with his role in Pittsburgh either. There's the talks about him requesting a trade and wanting out of Pittsburgh have been circulating here for several weeks. The Steelers were lucky enough to find a deal for him and were able to get a 6th-round pick for him.
Well, you kind of mentioned about his utilization there with the Steelers. I mean, at the end of the day here, this guy, even when they just played the Seattle Seahawks a couple weeks ago, this guy was only used 26% of the time in that game. He's actually leaving the Steelers with only 1 sack and 10 tackles. So I can see where they feel, hey, we're not getting our bang for our buck. This is kind of an easy push out for us where we can get some capital, some cash back on this particular trade. And then on top of that, hey, let's send him over to the Chiefs. The Chiefs definitely need all the help they can get right now. I agree with you guys. Is it enough? I don't know. Maybe, if he gets more playing time, he might become a defensive threat over time. But right now, to Justice's point, that secondary, there's a lot of miscommunication. Guys are just not effective in their stance. And Sorensen, I mean, this guy was almost a threat on the defensive side of the ball a couple of years ago. He's almost obsolete this season. For whatever reason, he is just not effective on the field. And last but not least, I'm going to take it right back to the Rams. Not only did they go out and get Von Miller to help shore up, they went ahead also and cut Deshaun Jackson. So once again, they are in Vegas right now. They are seriously at the table. They're pushing all chips in, and they are making strategic moves because they feel they have the best shot at the Lombardi Trophy. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us here on The Extra Point. As always, I'm your host, Roland Rainey. I'm joined with my fellow colleagues, Jeremy out of Indiana, Justice out of New York, and we will see you here next week again on The Extra Point.